interrupt Chair Eakin. For fire safety, we need to clear the area by the doors. May I ask that all members of the public, any members attending this hearing, please find an open seat in the audience. I can work on getting an overflow room if we need it, but let's first see if we have enough seats. Thank you. Appreciate it. Supervisor Melgar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I have to apologize. I'm sick, not COVID. I've tested 4 times in the last 24 hours, but here we are. So thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you about what is going on here in District 7. Let me just say, for starters, that I want to thank Tom McGuire and the staff at the MTA, Joel Ramos, and I also want to thank the Coalition on Homelessness. Folks are here. We don't quite see eye to eye for how to proceed forward, but they are not who I have an argument with. In fact, when I became supervisor, RVs and commercial vehicles were parked on Winston Avenue, where we're seeking 4-hour parking restrictions, and Lake Merced Boulevard for about 3 or 4 years already. And my predecessor, President Norman Yee, had worked with a community to come up with a plan to improve Lake Merced. Since I became supervisor, 2 people have died on Lake Merced Boulevard due to high-speed crashes, one in February of 21 and one just last month. It is a dangerous road, just like Brotherhood Way is a dangerous road. There is no crosswalk or light at the intersection of Brotherhood Way and Lake Merced. There is at Higueras and Lake Merced, but people still go too fast, and we desperately need improvements. We are adding thousands of units between Park Merced and Stonestown in that area, thousands of new bodies, and the main recreational area is Lake Merced. And what is between those new housing units and that recreational area is very dangerous roads with not adequate infrastructure. So I want to tell So I want to tell you a little bit about why I'm here. I have requested that the MTA institute 4-hour parking on Winston Avenue and Buckingham Road. Lake Merced already has a quick build project that I made sure was designed with community input and funded. And it has been funded. It has now been delayed for almost a year in terms of the implementation of the quick build, while we were working with the Coalition on Homelessness and HSH to try to find a place for folks to go who are currently on Lake Merced Boulevard in Winston. We have been unable to get finality on that. But in the meantime, like I said, it continues to be dangerous, and there's a bunch of things that I'm worried about. So I'm coming to you for help in implementing these parking restrictions, even though I recognize that it stresses the folks who are currently in those RVs on Winston Avenue and Lake Merced. But your charge is, as I have on this slide, public transit, streets, bicycling, paratransit, parking, traffic, walking, taxis. It is not housing. You are not a housing agency. I am committed to continuing to work with the housing agency to do what they do, to support what they do, serving the unhoused population, providing temporary housing for the unhoused, providing permanent housing for unhoused people or people who are living in their vehicles, and for preventing and ending homelessness. That is what the housing agency is supposed to do. So I think that as the district supervisor, it is my responsibility to make sure that our people are safe, that our streets are safe. It's like a basic service of government, and that is what I'm coming to you for. So let me just share with you what I'm talking about if you haven't been there. So I don't have a pointer, but you can see, can't quite see that. So Lake Merced Boulevard wraps around Lake Merced in the open space. And Winston Avenue goes from Lake Merced Boulevard up to Buckingham to where Stonestown is. So I want you to see that both Lowell High School and Lakeshore Elementary School are right on Lake Merced, and that the path from Lowell High School and Lakeshore Elementary School to Stonestown is Winston Avenue. And as everybody knows, Stonestown Mall is the after-school program for all schools in the west side. But it is a dangerous road. There between Lot 25, which is where that circle is, there is no crosswalk. So if you are on a bike, the bike parking for Lowell High School is in the back towards Lake Merced Boulevard. Which is great. They have secured parking for bikes inside the gates. But if you're on a bike and you want to get to Stonestown and you want to cross Winston Avenue to get on the bike lane and go up, there's no way to do it unless you go all the way down to Lake Merced Boulevard, which, as we know, is very dangerous and very fast. So the entire area needs a lot of infrastructure improvement to make it safe for the kids. There are 3,000 kids that attend Lowell High School. And not all the elementary school kids at Lakeshore do, but the 4th and 5th graders do go up to the mall. So on Lake Merced Boulevard, we have a plan to build a segregated bicycle lane away from the traffic, which regularly goes 50, 55 miles an hour. And that will help, folks coming from that entire area, Park Merced, where it's the largest rental housing community in District 7, really in the city under one ownership, and the mall. And then there's also San Francisco State, which sees about 30,000 students every day who use this entire area as well. So this is what I worry about in terms of public safety in transit. The RVs are on the public right-of-way, and they're occupied by folks. Besides the RVs, we have several commercial enterprises that routinely park their vehicles because they can, because it's free. So there's Gentile Plumbers has, when I went over there on Sunday, at least 6 vehicles that are parked on both Winston and Lake Merced. Jehovah Jireh Towing has had 5. Sometimes they have 4, sometimes they have more. We have Melendez Towing also has several vehicles. Kaufman Hauling, which is has those big cabs that haul cars, that goes on 2 decks, they also routinely park their vehicles. So, aside from the issue of folks living in their vehicles, we have the issue of commercial entities using our public right-of-way because they can, because it's free, and because there's no enforcement. So now the RV folks, we started working with a coalition on homelessness because they had language capacity. I have to say thank you to Jessica, who is here, probably outside, who has been the organizer assigned from the coalition to communicate with the folks who live in the RVs. I have met with them a couple of times. Most of them are Spanish-speaking folks. It's a cohesive little community. I would really, it would be my dream if folks could stay together, because there's a lot of families, people help each other, but that is not your job. That is the job of the Department of Housing and Homelessness Supportive Housing. I think that we have let this situation persist for many, many years, and besides the public safety issues with transit and traffic, there's a couple things that are dangerous about the situation. The first one is that Winston Avenue is uphill from Lake Merced Boulevard, which is our secondary drinking water source for the city. And I have been unable to convince anyone to help us provide sewer services to folks living in these vehicles. And so that sewage is going places. Sometimes people dispose of it properly, sometimes they don't. We also have folks who don't have electricity hookups to the grid. What they use instead are generators. And we have people with generators and gas cans that power those generators on the dry grass that belongs to San Francisco State University and also SFUSD, and it's a fire risk. The fire marshal has been out there, talked to folks, but what choice do they have? What choice do folks have when they're living in their vehicles and it's cold or they have to cook? So I think that we as a city have kind of punted our responsibility to serve these folks. I will continue working with the department, but I cannot stand for having the situation persist. We cannot do no enforcement and pretend like we're doing something good for this community when we're really not. What we're actually doing is just punting the responsibility that we have for folks to be safe on our streets and to the folks who are living in vehicles who could be given a better option by the Department of Homelessness. So the last slide I'm going to show you is, there's a lot that is said about West Side, about the West Side doesn't want affordable housing or services for the homeless. I want to show you where homeless services are right now, funded in the city. This was in the paper, in the Chronicle, just this past week. You will see it's nowhere near Lake Merced and nowhere near District 7. I have been begging the department for the last 2 years and 8 months for these services. We had money in the budget. I think the money is still good from what our mayor says to me. And I want this to happen. I think we have a site that we can move people to. I can't guarantee it because the department is not on my control. But I know that if we don't do that, if we don't implement restricted parking, what's going to happen is that for every vehicle we take off the street and put into a safe parking site or offer emergency rehousing to, another vehicle will take their place, or another family, because it is a fact that many of these families are living in vehicles that they do not own. Somebody owns these vehicles, is occupying the right-of-way that you are responsible for, collecting rent off the desperation of people, and, making money. And, if somebody erected a structure in a public park, we would have a legal recourse against that. But in this instance, we do not. And so I, as the District 7 supervisor, I'm asking you to please vote to support this. I give you my commitment that I will continue to work with the coalition and with the department to find a solution for folks who want to go into a safe parking site to have an option. I think there is someone from the department here. Okay. But, that's where we are. What I hope you do not do is just punt this and let it continue for a few more years like we have for the past few years. And I will stick around for questions, but I do have to go to the board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Melgar, for being here and just helping us to understand your thinking and the way that you're thinking about this as a safety issue, as a public health issue, as a fire issue. Some of these things don't seem immediately apparent when you just think about this as a parking regulation issue. So your perspective as someone on the ground who's walked the corridor, talked to people, is invaluable to bring into this conversation. So thank you for being here. Colleagues, Director Heminger, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Supervisor, I hope you feel better soon. I did want to ask you a question about the progress that's been made on identifying a safe parking site, because I would imagine that most neighborhoods aren't clamoring to host one, but right now we've got a sort of de facto position in your district, and is there a place that we could find that would be better planned and better facilitated? Could you give us a little update on that work?
So I am loath to give you that because, of what you just stated. I can just say that we have identified several sites. The department has criteria for investment in the site, sewer, water, access, and several sites have been discarded because of those issues. We are currently looking at a site right now that I think is very promising, but I cannot tell you, details about it.
And do you have some sense of timetable about when we might be able to bring something together?
When you say we, who do you mean?
Well, in particular, you drew a distinction between us and, but it does seem to me that the two agencies, this idea of a safe parking site to be used for habitation is really still in between those two departments and their jurisdictions. So the question is, if it's the homeless department taking the lead, when do you think they might come up with something?
So I do not know the answer to that question, and perhaps they can. Let me just say that I have been working with the department on this issue for 2 years and 8 months. So I'm hoping that we can get things done more quickly. I know that the department has been able to bring programming up quickly at the Balboa Upper Yard and at the pier, when the pandemic hit. So it is possible to do it quickly. The work on Lake Merced Boulevard has already started. They've already started drawing lines. The elimination of the parking is not going to happen until after October. But again, this has been delayed for a year, and somebody died, just last month. So if the position of this board is that you won't act until the Department of Homelessness does something, of course, that's your prerogative. I am begging you to please act on it and, put up parking restrictions. It takes your sign shop a little bit to actually print those signs, and it takes enforcement a little bit, and I can't speak to that. I think Mr. McGuire will be able to do that. I think we have some time, but I think that not making a decision and just letting it persist doesn't do anybody any good, including the folks who are living there right now.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Director Yekutiel, please.
Thank you so much. First, Kamar Khatima Tova to you.
Happy New Year to you, too.
I just wanted to drill down on Director Hemminger's point, which is a little bit about punting. And I agree with you. I don't want to punt either. And so my question to you is, what do you think is the responsibility of the executive branch on this issue, and us in particular? Should we be trying to find sites around the city and actually take on some of the responsibility of this along with our peer agencies? Because I'm wondering, if we keep leaving it up to the supervisors and to individual community members, we may never find these sites and create this space. So what do you think?
I do think that there is a role for the MTA in particular and the executive branch in solving this, or at least ameliorating the situation. I am the chair of Land Use and Transportation for the board. For the past couple years after the pandemic hit, we spend a lot of time and energy negotiating over the minutia of the parklets and shared spaces program. How wide, how long, how high, whether they closed at night. So, why is it that we did that, but we cannot deal with this issue of folks on our public right-of-way, which is a fact? I do think that there is a way to come up with legislation to, get some order, knowing that people are on our streets, that they have no other choice, and also knowing that there are service providers who work with those folks, and if we had, a designated place for folks, it would make it easier for the providers to find them, to build community, to offer services, and have it be an orderly process rather than right now, which is a game of whack-a-mole with neighbors being upset because there are folks in front of their house.
Other colleagues have any questions? Director Hinsey? Okay.
No, my question was about Director Hemminger's the possible timeline for the safe parking site. But as the supervisor said, we don't control that, and there is no one there from the Department of Homelessness, correct? No. Okay.
I think that's right. Okay. Thank you again, Supervisor Melgar, for being here and sharing your perspective with us.